Outer Orange.
It is Valentine's Day, correct? And you know what would be great to do on Valentine's Day? Rank all the decks that are all out in Lyrical as of Lyrical set 4. I'm a really crappy tier list maker. I'm not Curly. Curly's the king. But yeah, I'm not Curly, so I'm not as good at these. So I wanted to tier list basically all the Lyrical decks from my knowledge so far. What kind of you know, just what their placement is. There's a bunch of them, you know. None of us have time to test through every single one, but lucky for you, I've played majority of them, not every single one of them, but it's enough. And worst case scenario, we also got the lovely people in our chat right here below to help us, and if not, there's also the YouTube comment section that do also like to share their opinions because they're such wonderful people. So we'll get around. Kyrie SSSSS tier? No. So real talk, Kyrie right now is in the A tier slot. She is barely touching kind of goodness deck. I think the Stride decks keep her down a little bit. I think if the Stride decks get touched or anything like that, she'll probably go up. She is getting good support coming up. And if you're wondering like, why is Kyrie good right now? Well, I think she's keep in mind, we're comparing this with like other Lyrical decks. We're not keeping in mind with everything else in D. As a Lyrical deck, if you were to build a deck, I think this is definitely one of the decks to build if you want to. It's good. It's definitely good to play. But yeah, so you can reverse stack your deck with Eileen now. Also, the new grade 2 that restands the herself and also gives 5k to the front row is really good. We also have access to Yasmin, and Yasmin also just lets you basically go to grade 4 if you're going second, which is very important. I think it's a very important thing to kind of keep in mind. If you're going second, you can actually kind of have an edge on your opponent. And now, since we can choose to go first or second, you kind of can make that decision for yourself if you want to just ride to grade 4 when your opponent is on grade 3. Up to you. But you just have like that little edge to kind of go into grade 4 and instantly go into your pop-off turn and kind of hope you survive. I think the downside to the deck is that it just doesn't give enough power as another deck on this list, but I do think it's on the stronger side. But I'm going to play an A tier. I actually think it's pretty solid. I think it's a very solid tier 2 deck and probably one of the better tier 2 decks. I think this deck sucks. All right, this is Ernst correct. I'm sorry. It got no good support from set 4. It needs more Ernst correct units. It didn't get them. The new stuff from the Easter set, the festival set, didn't really do it much. I'm just putting it down there. So I know there's always gonna be that one person that's just gonna be like, no, Ernst correct is good, I swear. Like, yeah, it might have like its moment or whatever where your opponent just doesn't know how to guard against it, or if you check the over trigger or some wacky stuff happens. I mean, yeah, sure, it could win a game or two, but if you actually want to care about like what deck you're on, just don't play this deck. It's not very good. I think Steel is somewhere around here. Again, I'm sure some people will argue with me. There's a lot of people that really obsess over certain cards in Lyrical, so they like really just only play those decks, and I get it, but like, man, we are here to, we got the hammer out, you know. We got real talk today, but this deck's okay. In actuality, it's okay. I kind of want to put it higher, but I think I'm going to keep it here. Catgirl, I think, is under the same realm. Some will say this deck is better, and they probably want to put it here. I don't know. Every time I face this deck, I'm not scared. I don't really fear it. The Sanction 2 definitely brought it down too over time. It can be scary, but this deck is very reliant on its board. If it doesn't have a board, it doesn't do much, and I think that's really hurting it right now. Might get support in the future, who knows? Felty, I think, is very rough as well. I would say Felty's definitely somewhere down here. She has her moments. Like I said, a lot of these decks have their moments, but we're comparing them to the other decks on this list, and we definitely have like better options here, right? And Felty's okay. I don't know, she's just okay. Like, I don't really have much else. I thought this deck was better, actually, and then I built it, and I was very sad because it wasn't that good. Bunnies, I believe, is also a C tier deck. I don't know. Every time I play this deck, I don't feel very good playing it. I've seen other people have more success with this deck. Sometimes I've touched it, I'm like, it hits numbers. It does hit numbers. I don't know, that's all it really does. It's just Leticia. Now this deck's actually, in my opinion, really good. I think this deck is probably on par with Kyrie, especially once the promo comes out. I might be coping, but I actually think this is a very strong deck. I think people should not be sleeping at this at all. I've actually been thinking about rebuilding her because, like, it's crazy to me that she's been around this entire time. It's just people have been playing other stuff too. But this deck has not been bad, like, this entire time. And now we got the set 4 stuff, which is okay. But then we're also getting that grade 2 promo, which I think does change how the deck functions, but also makes it stronger. And the fact that you can constantly grab from soul and then pop to hand, grab from soul, grab to hand is really good. And you have access to another order that you can search, which is also like increases her consistency buff, along with the 50 card deck we have going on. I think there's a lot of room for Leticia to actually shine. Leafia is the deck I don't know enough about to give her a ranking, so I'm just gonna kind of put her, we can talk about her later. Medell is definitely in a B tier slot. I think it's stronger than the decks below her. I don't think she's stronger than the decks above her. So Medell does this thing where if you just open the nut, your opponent can't really do much about it. They just kind of flop sideways and die. When you don't open the nut, the deck's just okay. And then when you like super brick, the deck does nothing. But if you go first, this deck's like insane. Going second's a little on the rougher side, but you at least going second, all your stuff's online. This deck's biggest issue is actually numbers. Everything else about this deck's actually really good. It's a restanding Rolling Prison deck. So if you know how Zorga works, where the 2 crit rearguards attack, this one has 2 crit rearguards that also restand. But the numbers are smaller. So that's like the downside of the deck. Yoka, I think, is a solid B, C-ish tier-ish deck. I want to say she's more of a B tier deck than a C tier deck. Her new support isn't that good, but I think the deck on its own is fine. It's again another restanding rearguard deck. I don't know what a Turbo Kyoka deck looks like, but I also play this deck super aggro. I play this deck like as if like I'm about to die every turn. Like I play every single order I could think of. I play every single rearguard that's in my hand. I just play everything. I just play everything and go crazy. We are getting the new magazine as well, which I think will make this deck better as well. So we'll have to see sort of where this is. I want to personally, for me, I think it's up here. Might be kind of touching the C tier slot, but I don't think it's terrible. I think it's definitely more playable. Michu, I definitely think, is on the playable side as well. She's kind of in the same realm as these. Michu's issue, she doesn't really have like a win con. She kind of just does her thing and really it. We did get a new promo recently, actually, which gives her a consistency buff. And I've actually spent a little bit of time on her because one of my friends wanted a list on Michu. And they just don't play Vanguard that much. They're more like a Shadowverse player. Michu's one of the few decks that he kind of like kept up with. So every single time Michu gets support, he's like, hey, back. Michu stuff, tell me what's going on. So I was just giving like an update. So I did spend a little bit of time with the promo. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it. I think Patrolka is also a very B-ish tier deck. I spent a lot of time actually on this deck because I actually thought about competing with it. She's really fun. This deck's really fun, but sometimes it just does nothing. The new card kind of helps her a little bit with cycling back the Patrolkas, which is in the set 4 stuff. It's a grade 3. She lets you cycle back Patrolkas. It's a lot easier to cycle them back. You don't have to rely on the grade 1 as much. And it adds the consistency of getting Persona back. Otherwise, it's about this. It still has the same issues. But Patrolka is one of those decks where at any given moment it can become broken. So you never know. They bring out that one of that's just gonna make it busted, or we get like a Q tire or something that can help us search deeper into the deck or have a better win con, and this deck's gonna go crazy. So we'll have to see. I don't know enough about Herminia. I'm gonna put her back here. Pacifica, B tier right now. She has potential to go up. More than go down, in my opinion. She's kind of generic, like really generic, aside from like having the other Pacifica card that you really want to find. But you can basically build this deck however you want. She plays very toolboxy, and I do see a future where if better cards come out, this card will also go up with it. Right now, she doesn't really have she has like a numbers issue, more so that she has like a deck issue. The deck's fine. You don't really kill, you just keep farming. And you're just drawing cards and calling cards and drawing cards and calling cards and drawing cards and calling cards. That's all you're really doing. And you're telling your opponent, okay, this is 28, that's 28. It's just kind of a lot of numbers. And blow up like crazy if it hits if it's a setup. Okay, Herminia. Where do you think Herminia is? A B tier deck? An A tier deck? Because I do know it's kind of aggro. It gets like really crazy numbers. I'm more leaning towards B tier. I've only seen gameplay of her. I've seen gameplay and I've played her when she was the set 2 Herminia. I haven't played Halloween Herminia, basically. She's probably better than these decks, I would assume. But if the consistency is that bad that you might have to drop, because the reason why some of these decks are in B tier is because of consistency. Consistency or something's missing. That's where all these decks are. These decks are like they're just weird. These are just weird decks. Siana, I do think is an A-ish deck, kind of touching B tier. I think this deck is meta irrelevant. This is a hard one to rank. She's fine, like she's a good deck. But I will say in some metas, I think she's stronger. In some metas, I think she's weaker because of how she's built. She's reliant on what your opponent's doing. And it just depends on what your opponent's playing, right? So Fennel, I definitely think is an A tier deck, 100%. This deck is insanely easy to play, and it's actually really strong. Is it the strongest in the A tier slot? Maybe it's like here. It might even be here right now. This deck's very slept on right now. It's basically Gravidia. And it can just randomly just win games. It's like the stronger version of like what Ellis Steel kind of does, in my opinion. I think it's just more consistent Ellis Steel. Ellis Steel kind of needs a very specific setup. This deck does not care. It's also insanely easy to play. You just find your orders, you call a bunch of cards, and you go crit crit. You go, my Vanguard has a crit, my Rearguard has a crit. What are you gonna do about it? And you just keep doing that every single turn. As the game goes on, the numbers get bigger and bigger. The only downside is like a Rearguard issue, which is a spooky deck. It can definitely win games. Definitely powerful. Prism, I definitely think is the strongest right now in the category of lyrical decks. I think if you're playing lyrical, you should be either playing this, or this in my eyes. Lutetia is kind of in this realm too. I don't know how much like I said, I don't know how much the Stride deck's harder. But if you want to play lyrical and you want to play it competitively, you should be eyeing Prism. I've never felt so safe and snare before. Yeah, Prism makes you feel safe. Prism is how I felt when I was playing Zorga. Like, your hand's massive, you're constantly doing stuff, your board is safe. Like, there's a lot that can go wrong unless your opponent like really rushes you down. I think Mushi King is one of the few decks that this deck actually is scared of. But outside of, and like probably the Stride decks, but outside of that, you're usually pretty safe. Like, the only stuff that this deck really dies to is the, you know, obscure anomalies, I would call them. I've been testing this deck a lot recently, and I can very safely say my only losses has been the OT. And there has to be the OT in a very specific time too. Like, I've had OT checked on me and I'm fine. And then there's some time, because the biggest issue with this deck is you can't obviously have to find the PGs like just by drawing into them. Or something about Zorga that I really liked was that I could just top 7 for them and find them and bounce them back all the time. It's a little bit hard to do that in this deck. So I felt more safe in Zorga, funnily enough, but this deck's still like insane. Anyway, if you're playing competitively, if you really care, I hate to play it, but this is the best deck by far. My biggest issue with Prism is Vouch being $60 a copy. Yeah, that is something to kind of, like I said, if you're playing competitively, you're probably gonna drop the money because you want to win, right? If you're playing casually, I would say Kyrie is perfectly fine as a secondary option, or Fennel is really good as a secondary option, or Lutetia is good as a secondary option. In terms of cheapness, Fennel probably beats them all. She should be the cheapest option on this list. From what I saw when I was building the decks out, the Fennel, if you have the crits and PGs and like the usual stuff like Sanctitude and stuff, this is $100. This deck is $100 basically. That's like with all her support and everything, and we exclude the stuff that you would typically have. So like I said, if you have PGs, triggers, everything, this is a $100 deck. That includes the Stegra. I don't know if she's gone up since out, but last time I looked, this was $94 to build the whole thing. For Tia, Fennel, Prism, what we talk about. For Tia, I definitely think is kind of like here, maybe even here. I'm not gonna lie. Weirdly enough, the 50 card deck made her worse, and the new stuff didn't make her better. And I actually think this deck's like super cope right now. This is coming from like a Fortia player. I have the deck, I tested the deck, and oh my, I think before with the 46 card deck, this deck was definitely higher. Charm I definitely think is an A tier deck, probably one of the better ones. I'm not as big of a Charm Out player. I do know I can do some crazy stuff though. I'm very aware of like this deck's power. Easily S tier. Because she plays Reese's. That's fair. That's fair. I think this deck's pretty good. I think it's up here. It's up here for a reason. It's pretty consistent. It does this thing, works with soul, has massive power, has drive checks. It's just I think this deck has a lot to offer. So I think this deck is better Herminia personally, but that's just how I view it. I think these decks are kind of similar, but I think this one's more consistent. I'm gonna have to leave it to y'all. I want to just throw it in the B tier, call it a day. I just have no idea. This is definitely, I don't know enough about this deck. I know people who play it, which is shocking, I know. But there are people out there who play this deck. Melon Matt plays this deck. He's actually pretty big into it. I don't want to say too much because I don't know how deep in the sauce he is with her in terms of like competitively. If he wants to like actually take her or not. What would you say the A tiers are in the current? So if you are competing, your chances of winning with the decks, I think it's like this is an option, this is an option, this is an option, this is an option, this is situational, and this is situational. So I think these two are, the bottom two are situational. I would even say it's probably like this. Meta viable decks right here. Lutetia is good, but she needs the promo, so just keep in mind with the promo, I think this deck is significantly stronger. I still think it's good, but I think if you're trying to compete, it should be like these four right here. And then Siana is situational. I think we made a good list. Look how ugly this looks. You can't even tell what the cards are. That's a beautiful tier list. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I realized I never actually zoomed in while ranking with y'all, so I'm so sorry. YouTube's gonna cry a little bit. It was supposed to be like this the entire time, and I totally forgot to zoom in. Oopsie. That's gonna be fun to explain to YouTube. Hey YouTube, sorry I'm an idiot. Bye. Have a nice day. Also, here is what Twitter had to say about this tier list. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe, like, comment, 50 cards.shop, code orange for all your goodies. And yeah, that's really all I have. Bye-bye. Peace out. До свидания.
Did you fall in love?